And we're live. Brilliant. Okay. Yeah, it's all working. This is good. This is good. Right. More everyone, thank you very much for joining us for the Do More with Less workshop. My name's Matt. I will be your host for today. Joining us is Paul Brooks, a Microsoft MCT, and he will be delivering the content to us. The aim of today's session is about getting the most out of the M365 product stack, primarily focusing on what you will get with moving to the Business Premium, which is the top SKU in the Modern Workplace SMB line. We'll be looking at security, productivity, looking at loss prevention, and basically the art of the possible. So some of the topics that will be covered in this session will be Authenticator, Defender, Purview, Intune, among many others. During the session, as you'll see, you've been muted, but please do put any questions you have into the chat. They will be logged, and at the end of the session will be a Q&A. So with that in mind, I'd like to hand you across to Paul. And as I said, any questions, do put them in, and we will try to answer them as we can live, but the majority will be done at the end. Paul, over to you.
Cool, thank you very much, and welcome everybody. And hopefully we will have a good session of going through and talking about the advent of the wonders of the premium licensing that we therefore have. So we're going to look into a couple of things. We're going to look into some scenarios, or we're going to look into some of the features that we have within the extended range of support within inside of Microsoft 365. So we're going to see how we manage some of the features, some of the functions, and some of the features that go with that. So as I said, my name is Paul Brooks, and I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, MCT, and I am an expert in the wonderful world of 365 and also the Azure world as well. So we're going to look into how we can manage this environment and where we go with this. We're trying to advent the idea of looking into how business has changed since the pandemic really hit. And with more people working in their, from home office or from their environments, we have a number of challenges in this day and age where we need to be able to get people to work together, collaboratively work together, but still work from home, still work in those environments where they can manage that infrastructure and manage that setup that they therefore have, and make sure they can work together, bring their environments together, bring their whole world together. So it's really important that with the way things have changed over the past sort of couple of years, really, we try and have a tool that can therefore bring together all of the uniqueness that we had with it working within the office, but now we can therefore bring this into today's society where we're working from home. We're working more disparate and distributed around the world, around the environments that we therefore live in. And generally over time, things have therefore changed. We've found that certainly when I first started out in the IT industry, if I hadn't taken any of my or if I was going to visit a customer site, or I was going out to visit a customer, I would find that I would have to make sure I take everything with me. These days, if I didn't take something with me, then I'd have to go back to the office. I'd have to go and find that in the office, and then go back to the customer site. These days, we want to access our information from anywhere in the world at any time, and we want to be able to not just access that, but we want to make sure that it is therefore available to us whenever we need it, at the time we need it, from wherever we are. And this brings in a number of problems. For us for Microsoft, and for any organization that's going to be working in this kind of environment these days. So we've got the problem of real-time collaboration and making sure that we can all work together and we all know how we're working. And often we're not going to be visiting customer sites. We're going to be doing calls. We're going to be doing configurations around that, and therefore we need to make sure that there are tools out there that can help us to manage that, to help us in that environment. one of the biggest challenges that we have certainly is the idea of security. Security is one of the biggest pushes. As I said, if I had when I first started IT, I didn't take anything with me. I'd have to therefore take any of my or go back to the office to get that. These days, I want to be able to access that from anywhere. I may have my device inside of my office. I may have my devices inside of my the world that I live in, as in my mobile devices. I've got my my laptops and my environments. I may want to access from an internet cafe or any other type of environment. So we need to be security minded. And one of the biggest things that we get with Microsoft 365 Business Premium is that we therefore turn around and going to get some really good security built into the environment that we therefore have and the configuration of that. So we're going to look into that, and we need to make sure that we want to break down those walls so that we can make sure that everyone is doing their job, everyone is working specifically to be able to manage what they are doing, and that they can do the job they need to do. So we don't want to, as people used to do with certainly with security, is to turn around and go, well, we're going to put blocks in place to make sure that everything is locked down. No one can do anything in their environment. They can therefore just go through and manage their environment and just do what they need to do. But these days, you want to be able to allow access, and we have to think of the new security planes that we therefore have, and there's some of the new threats that we might get as we go through that information and that structure. And so that is what we're really looking at over the next thing. And really, these days, it is all people driven. These days, trying to get people to communicate, trying to get people to work together, trying to get people to be that one-stop shop for everything that we therefore have. And we're trying to do this across the idea of therefore what we call our real-time collaboration, where we need to make sure that even in this virtual world that we live in, that we can all work together, we can all communicate, we can all work together on those projects, we can all manage those environments. And that's what we're trying to get with Microsoft 365. We can therefore manage and get everyone to work together and transform the way people work and collaboratively understand how our organization works, how our individual teams work, and how our environments work together across that. But we need to make sure that people can do what they need to do when they need to do it. So there is a number of security measures that we need to think about putting in place. There are real-time risk because it used to be when everyone had their own infrastructure, their own environment, we could therefore manage who can access that material and who can access anything inside of our environment by only accessing our corporate environment. These days, because that corporate environment is out there and anyone can therefore access it, so therefore can people that are looking at cyber attacks and kind of phishing threats can come along and try and attack our organization in order to get access to information. And that makes the most important thing that we have these days the identities that we therefore have and the entry points that we therefore get in, our endpoints. We need to be able to manage endpoints to be able to make sure that when people try and get into our environment, we can therefore manage those endpoints. So an endpoint can be ranging from that mobile device through to just someone sending you an email. And there's entry points or endpoints that we have all over the place that are therefore going to be available for us to therefore come in and potentially be a risk for us. And so we need to mitigate that risk and make sure our employees, make sure the people using the environment understand that how important they are in that whole scheme of things. And obviously, we therefore want to play and reduce the cost of this. So we don't want to make it sort of too expensive for anyone to be able to implement and to configure. So we need to be able to reduce cost while implementing all of these. And Microsoft with Microsoft 365 are therefore one of the best in the marketplace for providing tools that can therefore provide us with our real-time collaboration, provide us with that extra security that we're going to need and that cost. And we're going to look at some of these features and functions in the next few minutes of our call together and going through and looking at some demonstrations around this. So market trends tend to focus on, as we can see, a couple of different kind of focuses that we have here. So 84% of the global BDMs are accelerating the digital transformation to accommodate demands for more flexibility. That's what people want. They want to be able to turn around and say, I can work from anywhere, I can do what I need to do, but I still want to feel part of that team. I still want to be working together with my colleagues. I still want to be managing that environment going forward and managing the overall structure of what I'm doing and making sure that I feel part of the team and the rest of the team feel part of the team with me. And therefore we can work together and manage that. And we want to be able to do that from anywhere in the world that we therefore have and work with. Then 88% of small to medium-sized businesses feel that their business is vulnerable to an attack. These days, we have to assume that therefore there's going to be an attack, but what we have to do is reduce the risk to that attack. So we have to turn around and start saying, how can we put in place things that are going to make sure that we will not necessarily break or worry about any of those endpoints, any of those identities, and make it as easy as possible to get in, but as difficult as possible. Make it as easy as possible for anyone that's meant to be in to get in, but make it as difficult as possible for anyone that's not meant to be in to get in, to not to get in there. So we want to make it as costly as possible for any of these people to manage that. So give people freedom, but make sure that that security is in place to do that, and that's what we're going to look at in this session. And then we need to extend the financial stability needs. So there's sort of a 1-year cash reserve recommended to sustain operations for up to 3 to 6 months historically across those. So we want to do more with less, and that's the whole idea of this session: how we can utilize the added features, the added functions that we get, and what are some of those functions that we can therefore work with across that environment. So looking at, I said, those market trends, we're trying to focus on the digital strategies that we've therefore got, making sure people can work from anywhere using any devices, but we don't want to allow people to start to pass that information out, because information is a valuable thing, and we don't want to start allowing anyone to access our corporate data and our corporate devices and any information inside of that. Security is the most important thing that we have these days. So the security plane has changed. It has changed from the idea of being a play of protecting our data by making sure people can't get in and reducing our endpoints and putting up firewalls or things like that. It has now changed to the idea that we want to protect our identities. And our identities are probably the most important part of any kind of security that we have, particularly in the cloud-based or the Microsoft 365 based world that we therefore live in. And we need to be financially stable across those environments and those configurations. So this is where Microsoft 365 comes in. It provides us with our secure. Why is it good on security? Well, Microsoft has a number of touch points out there that can add to the security measures that we might get inside of our environment. And we can therefore sit there and say, we want to make sure our security is high, our security is good. Microsoft gather information from all sorts of places all over the world, and they add this into Microsoft 365. So they gain information from things like the Xbox world, the Windows world that they therefore have. They gain information across the Microsoft cloud, of which Microsoft 365 is part of, and that gives us the ability to be able to add all of that security information they're picking up, and they have teams of people to go out there to do that. But they want to do that cost effectively, so they want to give you their experience. Microsoft work on kind of the idea of turning around and saying, well, if we can make it cost effective people to use, people will use the Microsoft 365 environment, work with security, and that will protect and make sure that everyone can utilize all of the functionalities and the features that we therefore have within inside of that to manage their environment better, to work more collaboratively, to be in that environment. And it needs to be reliable, but in real time or reliable real-time collaboration across that cloud environment, so that we can therefore still work together, still in the times when we can do this. So this includes things like the idea of Microsoft Teams, cloud storage, some other kind of familiar apps that we have inside of that. Plus, there is a lot of things behind the scenes that you don't see with the Microsoft 365 that therefore are the added advantage around the security, the management, the structure of an organization being able to manage this environment and do this. Most people just see that front end where they see, Microsoft Teams, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and all of those sort of things. But what they don't see behind that is how Microsoft 365 will help to make that environment more secure, help to provide the reliability and the configuration across that, and the structures around it. So let's look into some of the features and some of the functions that we therefore have. What we're going to do is going to go through and look at a couple of different areas really of information. The first thing is the idea of being able to connect in to the world. As I said, security is probably the most important part of any organization when they're looking into Microsoft 365. The first level of security is that we turn around and say, we want to make sure that we secure identities. Identities are the most important part of any kind of security measure that we therefore have. Most people believe that their identity is not that important. If I go out onto the street, I can therefore go along and say, I want my identities or I don't care about my identity. If someone asks me for my password, I will therefore give them my password. There was a study done where 60% of people would just give their password out over on the street while people were walking by, and asking them for their passwords or for their information. So we don't want those passwords to be gained out. As soon as someone can gain a password, we can configure up and manage or people can be available to get into that environment. So we want to do everything to try and protect our environment from being accessed as far as our identities are concerned. So what are the best ways of doing this? Well, there's a couple of different methods that we have inside of the Microsoft 365 environment that we can therefore use. Just let me share my screen a second. Just change the screen. Screen I'm sharing. So yeah, when people first started out with security, certainly around the idea of identities and the management of identities, what we had, it was the idea of people had a username and a password. Standard way that people would therefore authenticate into an environment and therefore sign in. These days, what we want to do is turn around and say, well, people will give up those usernames and passwords very easily. So we want to try and protect our environment against that. And the way we do that these days is we use what we call, therefore, multi-factor authentication. And with multi-factor authentication, there's three things that we therefore need to think about. That is three parts to this: something that you know, something that you are, and something that you have. So what are these? Well, something that you know might be something like the idea of a your password, a 6-digit code, or security questions. So people's configurations around that. Something that you are is therefore going to be fingerprint recognition, facial recognition, anything along those sort of lines. Something that you are, and something that you have will be therefore a mobile device or your laptop. And the ultimate aim with multi-factor authentication is to try and get away from saying, well, it's just going to be a username and a password. It's now going to be a password, maybe with a code being sent to your mobile device, or with an SMS, or you've got your laptop you want to use. Ultimately, we want to use two of these areas. So we want to try and not just rely upon a password, we want to try and have something that you know and something that you have at the same time. And one of the ways we can do this is we want to ultimately we want to get rid of the password. We want to become passwordless. And passwordless is the idea where we can turn around and say, I want to use something that I am and something that I have. So therefore, I want to use something like my facial recognition, and I also want to use my my laptop potentially. And Microsoft have implemented this as part of Microsoft 365 to be the idea of Windows Hello and Windows Hello for Business. So that when you're in a Windows Hello environment, or when we're using Windows Hello, let's just bring up an example of this. You will be faced on your laptop, and what you're going to do is register your the face or do a facial recognition registration of your environment, so that when you come in, you're going to be sat there and you're going to be looking into your environment. The first thing you're therefore going to do is you're going to see on the screen this, and you'll see a little icon trying to find you. And therefore, automatically, it will log you in. So therefore, this is Windows Hello for Business. This is Windows Hello, where what is now happening is that as and when we try and log in, or as and when we try and activate that machine in the first place, it will therefore try and find our face and try and therefore log us in without a password. Now, how is this going to help? How is this therefore going to enable us to do what we're trying to do? Well, or how does this be more secure? Well, this means that I have my face tied to the actual machine. So therefore, I have to register my face on that machine. So if I go to a different machine, I can't access into that machine without registering my face again. If I don't have the machine, my face won't therefore work. If someone else comes and brings their face to that machine, then therefore they can't get in to that machine. Happens every time with my wife, and when my wife has Windows Hello turned on, so I will turn around and therefore go down and see her, and I will walk into her office, and I will see that it will look for my face, and it won't find it. So therefore, we can therefore configure around that. So Windows Hello for business is the process of managing that. That will therefore allow us to log into our machine. What we can then start to do is think about accessing the idea of the office environment. So once we can get into our environment, we can log into the office environment. So to log into our office environment, we would therefore go ahead and log into or open up a web browser, and we go to our office environment, which would therefore be office.com. And immediately with office.com, I am automatically logged in. What is the automatic login process? Why am I automatically being logged into the environment, and how is this therefore happening? Well, I'm being logged in automatically from what we call single sign-on. Single sign-on is the process by which we turn around and say, I want to be able to sign in with a minimum number of logins. So once I've authenticated in one service, I can therefore access other services. So I've authenticated into my machine, which will therefore mean, because I've authenticated into my Microsoft account, I can therefore automatically synchronize into my account for my Microsoft 365, for any other services that I therefore have. And I can link this out to third-party services if I want to, so I can have third-party services. So one of the other things that we can therefore have inside of this is we can therefore turn around and say, well, with our single sign-on, what we therefore do is we turn around and say, I can not just access the office environment, I can now access pretty much whatever I like out there, as long as I've been given permission to have that single sign-on process. So the single sign-on is where we authenticate once, and we use that authentication across every environment that we therefore have. And you can see here that automatically logged me in as Megan into this environment, and therefore allowed us to manage to go into that. Other ways we can authenticate. So that was using Windows Hello. What other ways can we therefore authenticate in our environment? Well, we can also use what we call the Microsoft Authenticator app. So the Microsoft Authenticator app is our application that we can therefore download onto Apple or iOS or Android devices. And what we can therefore do is utilize that app to therefore authenticate us. So we can therefore have a code that's sent to the Authenticator app, or we can say that this authentication needs to be confirmed by the Microsoft Authenticator app as part of that. And so we would then go in and say, yes, this was me doing an authentication. Again, taking away that password, because we're now using something that we have, which is therefore our mobile phone. Or mobile device, and we have something that we therefore we have to log into that device, and we also therefore are sending a code to that, and we have the application running on that. So running on that application, that configuration. So what does the Authenticator app actually look like? Well, with my Authenticator app, what I can do is I can go in and I can log into the Authenticator app. It will then come in with the Authenticator app running on that device. I can therefore say, okay, I've tried to authenticate, I've tried to log in using my account. So I've entered my username, and with that username, it's then said, right, we need to authenticate this with the Microsoft Authenticator app. So this is so I've then gone to my mobile device, and I've seen that this request has come up. I can therefore either approve or deny this. So if I see this is someone come in from some other environment, I would therefore deny it, or I can approve it and say, yes, I want to approve. As soon as I've approved, we can therefore guarantee that is us that's approving it. So someone hasn't got that mobile device. So I'm therefore asked to sign in by using something that I am, which is therefore my fingerprint recognition and the configuration of that fingerprint recognition as part of that process. We can then be signed in and we'll access, and we can therefore access the application that we've therefore had, and the configuration will therefore allow us to log in. And again, we'll end up being at our homepage. So inside of the Office environment and inside of the Office apps that we therefore have as part of that. Working behind the scenes, we therefore have a number of utilities that will deal with the authentication and management of whether this is a correct to use or correct management of that configuration and of that. So we then get our applications. So what applications are we therefore going to have? Well, we have the standard applications of Outlook, OneDrive, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Teams, and SharePoint, all accessible from the Office environment that we therefore have. So when we go into any of these are the online versions of the tools that we are therefore looking at. So if I go in and look at, say, maybe Outlook, for example, I'm therefore going into Outlook and managing the Outlook environment, and I can see here that I've got therefore some emails that have come in and some environments that I can therefore work in inside of this. So let's send Megan an email and make sure that she gets that email and therefore has a Word attachment to it. So just let me send her an email. Second. So I'm going to send a document with an attachment.
Oh, just so you know, we can only see your Outlook screen. Is that right?
Sorry, which one are you looking at? Sorry, you can only see
the email screen. Were you trying to do something?
You should just see my email just come in.
Okay, cool, fine.
Cool. Yeah, so there is the email that I've sent to Megan, and I'm opening that email. Inside of that email, I then go and open up the Word document, and I can therefore have my document here, and I can therefore go through and look at the document I've therefore got, and I can manage that document. Now you will see that document has been therefore opened and been looked into and being looked at. Well, that's all fine, but what has happened behind the scenes? What has actually kicked in? Well, behind the scenes, what we have is we have a defender. Defenders are basically the security measures that we have inside of the Microsoft 365 environment, or there's a number of defenders that we have. One of the defenders is called the Microsoft Defender for Office 365. The Microsoft Defender for Office 365 is a defender that, just let me Yeah, so we've got the Microsoft Defender for Office 365. What I'll do is I'll put this link into the chat for you, so you can get more information about Microsoft Defender for Office 365. So that's been placed into the chat for you. So what the Defender for Office 365 is going to do is a number of things for us. It is our guard around any incoming information or outgoing information across, primarily incoming information across our environment. And what it's going to do for us is it's going to turn around and check our emails, check our any kind of URLs that are coming in on those emails. It's also going to check any documents that are coming in on those emails. So it is going to look at email messages, URL links, and it's going to work across not just the Microsoft Word, Outlook environment, or work across the email. It's going to work across Teams. It's going to work across any kind of tool where we're going to get documents in and we're going to get configurations in. So what happens inside of the Defender for 365 is, behind the scenes, it will first of all check to see if it's a valid, or it's got any kind of viruses, or there's any kind of malicious attacks coming in, so any kind of phishing attacks or any kind of information coming in across those. It will then go through and say, okay, you've got an attachment. I had an attachment in that email, so the attachment will therefore be picked up and will be looked into. And as when we look into that, it will open that attachment up in a brand new system that it starts up behind the scenes. So it has a special system that it starts up, and it starts up that an environment where it can open up or safely open up the environment, or open up that document. If that document is going to affect us in any way, it will therefore go ahead and say, okay, opening that document is going to cause you a problem, so I will therefore not allow you to open that document up. I'm not allowed to configure that. If I allow the document to be opened and go through, then it's fine. You can therefore access that document and access everything else that goes with that. And so this does this for documents, and it does it for URLs. So any kind of links that we might have. So if we're going to open a link, it will open the link safely before we do so, and then will allow us to access that link if it's safe for us to do so, depending upon how we configure it. That's all built in real time behind the process of managing and monitoring the Office, what is called the Office or the Microsoft Defender for Office 365. So it will scan all of our documents, all of our URLs, and it will help us to manage that and see what we're looking into as far as that configuration is therefore concerned. So let's drop back. So we had our mail open, and that happened automatically. So it opened up the document for me inside of that. So when we're opening up our document, as I said, behind the scenes, what will therefore happen is it will say, yeah, okay, there's the document. I'll scan it, and I'll make sure that it's a safe document. And you don't see what's happening behind the scenes, but it will therefore go through and manage that that environment for us and configure that section up. And go through the online version of the Microsoft Word environment for us to therefore manage. What other kind of applications do we therefore have? Well, what we can therefore do with that document now open is we can therefore now save that document. So I can save my attachments to my environment, so I can automatically save these. So if I save this attachment now, so let's go through and reopen that and say I want to download that. Let's save it, sorry, let's just open it up first. I can save that document, And when I save that document, there's an automatic save location that I can therefore save that to. So I can save an online copy and I can say save. The automatic location is the attachments area, and that will automatically now be saved into the OneDrive environment. So if I go into OneDrive, I will find under OneDrive, I will find my attachments, and under attachments, there we go. We've got the attachment that's therefore been downloaded and saved inside of the OneDrive environment that therefore has configured. So we're collaborating across all of the environments, and we can therefore configure across those inside of that. With our OneDrive folder, we can therefore go along and select our files and go in and look at the configuration. We can then go through and we can then share this. So we can therefore go through and we can copy it to, so we can copy a link to, or we can copy the link out, and we can copy this link to a Microsoft Teams environment or into our setup, and we can therefore copy the attachments in, and we can also automatically push this out into Teams and pass the document out and collaborate between all of the parts of the documents that we therefore have and the configurations that we have within inside of that. What other defenders do we therefore have as part of this process then? What other defenders do we have as part of the business premium environment? Well, this is one of the ones that we have. The other ones that we therefore have are called the Microsoft Defender for Business and the Microsoft Defender for Antivirus. So in our Microsoft Defender for Business, we just close a couple of these tabs. So yeah, we have our Microsoft Defender for Business. So Microsoft Defender for Business is our tool that therefore provides us with enterprise-grade endpoint protection. And what this is going to therefore do is provide us with a protection where we can work with our endpoints. So our Windows 10, Windows 11 devices, and we can work with those endpoints to protect them. So we can have the added protection into our environment for against any kind of virus protection or against any kind of attacks that may be coming in. So analyze each of those individual machines and identify what is happening, and it allows us to do that for up to those sort of 300 type employees. The Microsoft Defender for Business will allow us to manage that and to configure that, and it will stop any kind of standard attacks across those environments. It's simple and easy to use and cost effective because it's part of that whole business premium environment. Again, there's a sorry about that. There's a link out to this, so I'll send you this link into the chat so you can read some more information about the Defender here. And you can therefore see the more around the Defender. You can look at these couple of videos that we therefore have around that. The other Defender that we have, so the other protector that we therefore have is the Defender for Microsoft Defender for antivirus. So the Microsoft Defender for antivirus, and the Microsoft Defender for antivirus will therefore bring in the idea of we'll bring in the idea of protection against malware, protection against phishing, and also some app security that we have as part of that. So the Defender for Antivirus is our tool for managing that real-time end-to-end protection against any kind of malware or official kind of attacks that may be coming in or configured across those environments and that configuration. So again, I can give you a link out to this to show you the security that we have as part of that. The other parts of this is what happens if we do get an attack, and how do we manage an attack if it happens. Well, we have here a new email that's therefore come in, and we go and access that email. When we access that email, we go and look at the document that's being attached in this environment. So if I go into that environment, I can see that it will open it up in Word. It will therefore say there's a password for that document, and therefore we can password protect our documents, and therefore we take our password, copy that password in, paste it in, choose OK. What you will now see is that we have sensitivity built in. So one of the things we can add into our security inside of the Microsoft 365 world is the idea of putting in labeling and putting in protection for our environment. So managing our protection across the environment. So we're going to look into the idea of how we can protect or put added protection by adding in a bit of data loss prevention, and therefore adding in a bit of security around the idea of sensitivity labels and the managing of those labels. So we can see here that the content contains information that is sensitive in our organization. So we add in the idea of sensitive information. Hold on just a second. That wasn't the one I was looking for. Hold on. One second. There it was. Sorry, yeah, that's okay. So we can see here that we can protect against the attack by therefore going in and saying, yes, we can add sensitivity labels and we can add warnings into our environment across those. So we're adding in the idea of making sure that our data is as part of that, as part of those defenders. We can add in the idea of security around any attacks that may be coming in or the configuration of those attacks and those environments. So then we can also go back into our Teams environment. And inside of Teams, we have a collaborative space in which we can therefore work. for it to start up. Come on. So inside of teams, we can therefore work together and manage our environments across these. So we have our teams, and we have what we call teams, and we have channels. Two things that we have inside of the teams environment. And our teams and channels will allow us to work together. So what is the difference between our teams and channels, and how do we manage those? Well, we have what we call our teams, and we have our channels. So first of all, a team is where you get a collection of people and content, and tools surrounding a project and an outcome that goes with that. So teams can be created as a private team, or we can have a public team. We get people to work together from inside or outside of our organization and manage those. So a team is designed to bring all of those groups together and work together closely across a number of different environments and our environment. We then have what we call a channel. And a channel is a dedicated section of a team. So if you want to get a team to work together, you can therefore create a channel inside of that team. So you're going to get different groups of people together to work together on an individual file or an individual environment or an individual part of that overall project. So your team can be a big collection, and therefore you can create a channel for individual work sections or workloads. So it's a dedicated section within that team to keep a conversation on a specific topic, project, discipline, or configuration. Within inside of a channel, you're going to get a shared area for OneDrive. You're going to get SharePoint site for sharing documents and configurations across and management across those. And I'll give you this link out again so you can get some more information on these as you go through. So we can see inside of the teams environment that we have here, that we've got therefore our teams and our environments that we can therefore work with. And I can go into my, let's say my general, and I can therefore create a configure across those. And if we want to, we can therefore create and collaborate across documents, across our environments, and manage across those as we go through. So we can also bring in things like whiteboards. So we can produce or start a whiteboard inside of the team's environment that will therefore work across the configuration and work across the settings that we have to have. And we can collaboratively work in that and annotate that and work together across those environments while live capturing and configuring those environments and that setup. So how do we invite people into that team's environment? How do we manage that? Well, one of the things we can therefore do sorry, wrong one. Is we can add guests into our team's environment. And if we were there, that's fine. So under admin, we can go into the admin facility that we therefore have within inside of the 365 world. We can manage. No, we're into the wrong one, so they have given us the wrong one there. Okay, so sorry about that. So yeah, inside of our Teams chat, that's where we were, sorry. We monitor on our DLP, data loss prevention. So one of the other things that we add into our Teams environment or add into with the Microsoft Premium for Business is therefore the what we call data loss prevention, a DLP. DLP, data loss prevention, is the ability for us to say sensitive information or information does not leave our organization. We want to define what that sensitive information is, and we therefore want to enable that sensitive information to go out and to configure up and to manage. So, for example, we might set some standard DLP policies that says I don't want information to be passed around our organization that is therefore going to be sensitive. So therefore, I might go into a chat, for example. And I want to add something into the chat, and I want to add that's something that looks like maybe a credit card number or some details that looks as though it's going to be some sensitive data. I send that sensitive data. Oh, DLP policy is not set up with that one. Hold on. But what now is going to happen is we should get a message stating that with DLP set up, it's not set up on that account. I'll find an account for you in a second. But we're going to get a information coming back saying that this is sensitive information. We don't want this passed out of our organization. So data loss prevention kicks in, and we can therefore manage our data loss prevention across that environment. The other thing that we therefore get, I don't think we've got, is one of the other features that we therefore get is what we call Microsoft Bookings. Microsoft Bookings is a facility inside of Microsoft 365 that helps us with that booking or the scheduling and managing of appointments. So if you want to schedule and manage appointments, this will therefore automatically manage the appointment processing for you, and will mean that it will therefore put your appointments into your calendars, make sure they don't clash with anything else. It will send out emails, SMS, messages across those environments for us to allow us to automatically link into Exchange Online and into our environment. So there are three components. We've got the booking page and we've got a web app. And so people can go onto the web app to therefore create bookings and manage those bookings in that environment or through that environment for us. Again, I'll give you this link out to so you can get more information on this. There's a little video on that as well inside of that configuration. So one of the biggest concerns that most people have inside of their organization is the number of devices that people therefore have. So therefore having to manage not just the laptop, managing not just the office machine that we might have, so the desktop machine. We also need to be thinking about managing mobile devices, and people want to be able to access from all types of mobile devices, whether it be a tablet, whether it be a mobile phone, or whatever type of device that we therefore want. And we need to be able to manage those devices and look into the management of those devices. What we do inside of the Office 365 Premium is we bring in, or Business Premium, is we bring in the idea of mobile application and device management, which is the idea of we be able to manage our devices. There are two parts to managing any kind of device. The first part of managing the device is called mobile device management, and then we have what we call mobile application management. Mobile application management is the art of being able to turn around and say, if I have a device and that device is going to be housing corporate data, I want to make sure that data is protected. I want to make sure that data doesn't leave that device. I want to restrict what maybe people can do on that device with the applications that they are therefore using, restrict what applications they can use and how they are working with those applications. That is where we can manage or set up the protection and make sure that data doesn't leave this device. Maybe corporate data, it may be data that is personal data, and we have corporate data and want to keep the two apart. So managing our data, managing the applications on that data is done through what we call the mobile application management. Then we can also manage the device, so we can do mobile device management. So we can restrict what people can do with a device. So a device can therefore be registered inside of the Microsoft 365 world, and we can say that it's a corporate device. So there's a couple of different ways we can manage devices. We can bring our own devices, which is where people may have their own personal devices, and we can bring those into the fold and manage those. Or we can therefore have corporate devices that are fully managed and looked after. So we can manage the device, so we can block the device. We can make sure that if the device is lost, it is therefore wiped. If we have protection on that device, we can enforce passwords to be used. We can enforce configurations to be used. So we can secure that device down by using mobile device management, and we can manage the applications on that device by using the mobile application management. And that mobile application management can therefore work across any kind of device that we therefore want. This is all instigated by the idea of using Microsoft Intune. And so Microsoft Intune is a cloud-based mobile device management and mobile application management application that's therefore going to manage that for us. It allows you to control features and settings on Android and iOS and Mac OS and Windows 10 and Windows 11, and it's all part of that Business Premium environment that we therefore have built into that and configured across that. And so you can therefore verify your environment. So let's have a scenario that we might have sort of a bring your own device. So this is a device that someone has that's going to bring that's a bring your own device. So a non-corporate device. This is a personal device owned by our employees and our employees. The iPhone device, you want to check the calendar of Outlook or Teams, and before you opening any kind of work-related app, the system wants to verify that it's actually me that's going to be part of that. So the mobile application management, mobile device management, also mobile application management will say you need to check that it's you beforehand. So before opening any kind of work-related app, the system it will ask us to verify that it's actually me. And so in this case, the mobile device does a facial recognition. So when I go and open up the Teams app, it will therefore access a key or get me to enter my code to go in to make sure that we can go in and manage that environment. So we can therefore guarantee that it's me to come in. So I verify coming into that environment to make sure that I'm there. And this is part of the mobile application management, so that we can therefore on our device check that our configuration is a PIN in this case, or facial recognition, or any kind of clarification number. So we need to guarantee that whenever we go into that app, every time we go into the app, we have to give that ID to prove it's us that we therefore coming in. If we don't know that PIN, we can't get into the app. And that's where a mobile application management and Intune will do that. So we register all devices with Intune, and therefore we can manage those devices. Other things that we can therefore do is that so that when anyone touches this, we need to verify that configuration. Let's fast forward an hour or so, and you imagine that you've left your phone or your in the car, and you can't get into it, and you realise that the device is missing or has been stolen. and you therefore can't get access to that. So you come back to your car and you find the device is gone. In most circumstances, this would cause a panic because you've got all your information on that device and that configuration through that. With Microsoft 365, you have an unauthorized user can't really access any of that data because they haven't got the biometrics or the PIN to log in, and we force those PINs to therefore be managed or to be configured as part of that. What we can also do is if the device is fully managed by the Microsoft Intune environment, we can therefore wipe that device. So I can do a device wipe that will therefore manage that. So simulation, can we see how that might work? Well, let's have a look. So yeah, we go into admin, go into manage devices. So we're going to look at our devices. And we find the device that we're therefore looking for. So we're going to look for the device itself. And you can see from here that we can do a factory reset, and we can remove the company data from this device. So it's a fully managed device. It's been picked up and looked at. So we can go through and manage the device and manage the setup of that. So we choose to remove the company data. We choose to confirm. And wherever that device is, that company data has therefore been removed. So we can wipe data from that device. We can wipe a whole device if it's a fully managed device and configure on through that. This is all managed through the management center and through the main admin center. So the admin center is here. So here's an example of the admin center. And from here, we can manage things like users, we can manage groups, we can manage devices, we can look into our billing, we can look at see what users are currently active. And we can manage our environment through here. So we can also set external access, and we can also configure through that. So we can go and look at the active users. We can select billing, and we can go and look into our billing, and we can look at the billing of our devices or our products and how we're utilizing those and where we're utilizing those. We can also go to the security. And under security, we can start to set things like data loss prevention policies and set up when data is going to be, or how data is going to be lost, or how data is going to be managed through that environment. Then we have the idea of what we call advanced threat protection. So in the admin view, you can see what is being thwarted. So what phishing attacks are being looked at, and how we're being managed and being looked at. So if we look into the admin center and we select our security, let me just kill that one off. So if we go into our security, so we're in the right place. We can go to our threat analytics. We can look at a number of different areas of threats that may be attacking us and how we're configuring against those. In that environment. So we can manage all of this. I'm just waiting for this to come through and give me some information and configure through that. So an example of all of this, and a great example of any of this, well, that's waiting to come through, is we have a bit of a customer case scenario that we can therefore give you to have a look at a little video of when this has all been used and how it's all being used. So what I'll do is I'll drop this video in. And if you go to this website that I'm just sending you here, I'll also bring it up here. Okay, so there is all there's a little video here, this little video well worth a watch through of how Microsoft 365 Business Premium has helped this customer to achieve more with less, or do more with less, and to work with them, and a great example of how it's being used and where it's being used. That's pretty much the end of the session that we're going to go through with you guys, introducing some of the features, some of the functions, some of the things that you get added into the environment. So I'll hand back over to Matt. And
thank you, Paul. So good afternoon, everyone. So I hope that was good. Sorry, it's still morning. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Still. I hope you found that of use. We're going to open up the Q&A session and bravely unmute the microphones. So if you have any questions, please put them in chat, or raise your hand, and we'll sort of come round rather than all scream out. But that's okay. So with that, I will hand you across to Richard.
Thank you, Matt. Was there any questions from the attendees on the Defender, Intune, Teams, or anything like that at all? I've got a few questions from a previous webinar, if not. I'll take that as a no for now. One question that someone had from a previous webinar was about the antivirus. I think maybe Keir can answer this from our team at Cobweb. Does they've currently got an antivirus in place outside of Microsoft? Would the Microsoft antivirus solution supersede that and allow them to cancel down and save some money?
Thanks, Rich. Yeah, so I'm Keir, I'm on the managed services team here at Cobweb, and yeah, to answer the question, the business premium offering from Microsoft in the M365 space comes with Defender for Business. So this is leveraging the sort of built-in antivirus within the Microsoft operating system to stream not just antivirus capability, but a wide range of other things up into the M365 portals, into the security portal that that Paul was showing earlier, actually. So you can see your devices, the state of their security, sort of get a score on everything, but also see weaknesses and vulnerabilities, so out-of-date software, both Microsoft software as well as third-party software, and also see various security recommendations that you can do to harden the operating system in regards to locking down various attack vectors. Obviously, that comes built into the licensing cost. So yes, if a third-party AV is being paid for, the Microsoft license then comes with probably a better one, that you can then you can remove your external licensing costs for a third-party AV and offset that against the cost of the Microsoft license.
Yes, Gear. And I know a question that often follows this up is what is the price of business premium against business standard? So price of business premium is £16.60 versus business standard at £9.40. So often customers find that once they take off the antivirus protection of the third party, that actually mitigates a lot of the cost of upgrading business premium, plus all the extra features that you get on top of that. Any other questions from anyone attending? Okay. Before I hand back to Matt, I'd say thank you to all of our current customers for attending. And if you have any questions, please reach out to your account managers. I know there's a lot of people that have joined that aren't aware of Cobweb previously, or potentially